Hello and welcome to your lesson on ratios. We're only going to look at two-term ratios today and how ratios can help us solve word problems. So my first question here is about making donuts. I have a little video for you to show you how the Swedish chef makes his final steps of donuts. So now that we know how they get the shape of the donut, let's look at how they make the batter, or how the Swedish chef would make the batter for the donut. So first says we want the ratio between butter to flour. So I look at this here. We have 1 small coffee cup of butter and 3 coffee cups of flour. So I write out that ratio. I'm going to get a ratio of 1 to 3, butter to flour. Okay? Now it wants me to draw a diagram for this ratio. So I'm going to draw 1 stick of butter, and then we have, for every 1 stick of butter, we're going to have 3 cups of flour. Our next part here is, it says the Swedish chef is expecting more company, so he decides to use 4 cups of butter. How much flour should he use? Well, we know my ratio from before is 3 to 1. Now I want to first convert that into fractions. So I'm going to have 1 cup of butter per every 3. So 1 on the top for every 3. But now we want to make my butter, instead of 1 cup of butter, we're going to have 4 cups of butter. And we don't know though how many cups of flour we need. So what must we do? I am going to see, how do I get from 1 to go to 4? Well, I multiply 1 by 4 to make 4. And if I multiply 1 by 4, I must multiply 3 by 4 to get my x. And that will end up giving me, my x will be equal to 12. So therefore, I will need 12 cups of flour if I am using 4 cups of butter. Let's look at my next Swedish chef question. So this time, the Swedish chef is making chocolate mousse. Okay, so now we know how he makes the chocolate mousse, but we want to know how he makes the chocolate part of the mousse. So it says, what is the correct ratio of cream to dark chocolate? So I'm going to look over here. We are looking at the cream here. So I have 200 milliliters of cream per 150 grams of dark chocolate. So we have 200 to 150. Okay? Now the next question says, how can this ratio be simplified? So I look at this, and I look at 200 and 150. What is the biggest number that could divide both of these? Well, if I divide both of these by 10, I'm going to end up getting 20 and 15. Now both 20 and 15 can be divided by 5, which will end up giving me a ratio of 4 to 3. See how I simplified that? The biggest number that can be divided in both of those is actually 50. Okay? Now the next question says, this recipe is too big for the Swedish chef, so he decides to reduce the cream to 160 millimeters. How much chocolate will he now use? Well, I look at this. I'm going to first have to put this into a fraction form, right? Because fractions are a little bit easier to use. So I have 4 to 3 is my ratio. But I want 4 of the cream, and we don't know how much of the chocolate that will be. So what do we have to multiply by 4 to get 160? We have to multiply it by 40. So if we multiply 4 by 40 to get 160, we're going to have to multiply 3 by 40 to figure out what that equals. And 3 times 40 is equal to 120. So in this case, x is equal to 120. So he'll use 120 grams of chocolate. So what is the total amount of chocolate and cream that the chef will now use? The chef will now use 160 milliliters of cream and 140 grams of chocolate. So hopefully you understood these questions on rates and ratios with just using two terms. I'll talk to you later.